Hey everybody, welcome to another module here in Module 10. What we're going to talk about today is a couple of different design options that you can use using CSS Flexbox. Flexbox is a wonderful, versatile thing, and I think there's just so many different applications, and I'm going to show you a couple of them here. So the thing we're going to be talking about today is this row setup. So I'm going to give you a couple of different options. I'm going to give you this content row. This content row thing is really interesting. The thing that makes this one a little bit different, we're going to use a couple of different properties because this one, as it is, looks very nice with three. But the way that this is set up, you could add multiple more and have it look just really nice where everything is going to just nice and evenly space. Obviously, adding a couple more is going to make it look a little weird, but whatever. The idea here is that without any change whatsoever, you can go and you can add and take away items and have this look exactly the same, where all of the stuff is distributed evenly. So it's a really versatile setup, and I like that very much. Additionally, I'm going to give you a left image, right image sort of alternating setup. And this is another one I think has some really good uses. It's another option that you have to make your page look modern and nice and give you some good different options to do. So all right, so let's get into this real quick. So with the thought of not having this not be extremely overwhelming to you, what I've done is I have posted a row setup page template for you inside of Schoology. So what you're going to do is what we always kind of do is you're going to copy all of this, and instead of using your skeleton, you're going to use this code instead. So I'll do that for you right now. So in VS Code here, I have the template already open. For our module 10 here, I'm going to right click and I'm just going to do a new file, call it row setup. And I already have a row setup, so I'm going to call it demo.html. You can just call yours row setup, it'll be just fine. And go ahead and you can paste that into your code here. So I'm going to open that thing up in Chrome, and I'm going to let you kind of see where we're going to start, because it's not an overly wonderful look when you start. So our row setup demo is here. You can see that without the CSS, as opposed to having this nice little setup, it really doesn't do a whole lot. It's pretty terrible. It does not have what we really need it to do. So let's go ahead and start making this thing look more like we need it to look. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to talk about a bunch of different things here. But we are going to talk first about Google Fonts. I believe we've done this before. We're going to do this again in, I think, arguably the easiest possible way. We're just going to select the font. We're going to apply it. You notice that I did that here for this page. We're going to pick a different one because I didn't like the one that I did. So what we're going to do is this time we're going to search for categories. Let's do a handwriting one. You have to be kind of careful with some of these handwriting ones because sometimes they get a little bit too much. Like my shadows in the light didn't look like it was going to be quite as nuts as it was, but whatever. So let's go with Patrick Hand here. Interesting name for a font, but whatever. So we're going to go Patrick Hand, and we are going to go plus to select this style. So now once we get it on, we're going to click our embed link, and we have this link tag that it generates for us. Go ahead, copy that, and then in your VS Code, you're going to go ahead and put that at the very top. So right underneath your head tag is a great spot for that Google font. And then what we're going to do, so we don't have to type this multiple times, is right under our style tag here, we're going to put this star. So a star is select all. that means that this is going to apply to absolutely everything on our page. So now we're going to go back to our Google font, and we're going to get the font family here and copy that, and we're just going to pop that thing right into this star so we can apply that new font that we've chosen to everything on the page. So let's take a quick look. Once you've done that, you can get rid of Google Fonts. It'll be fine. So we have this standard font. Now that we've applied everything to it, let's make sure I save that page first. Once you apply that font, oh, that's the wrong file. That's why it's not working. Once you apply row setup demo, you can see that now your font should change for everything, including your top and all the paragraph and everything on there. It's the easiest possible way to just apply your font towards everything that we've done. All right, so let's kind of keep going here. The first thing we're going to do is we have all of this stuff for our general page setup. We're going to go ahead and we're going to continue on right underneath our container. So there will be some things that I kind of paste in just for the sake of not mistyping them. Yeah, and the things that I paste in are really going to be the things that are the ones that we've done quite frequently before. That way you don't have to watch me type and struggle, and you don't have to wait for me. So the first thing, you notice that I applied classes to almost everything. In modern web design, having these classes is going to be absolutely common, no matter what you do, just to make your CSS writing so much easier and so much more effective. So I've used the main class of row, which is going to be our Flexbox setup. This is kind of like the Flex container that we've used in the past. So that row is going to be the first thing. So remember our class selector .row. And then we're going to do the 3 standard Flexbox things that we always kind of do. With one kind of change. So we're going to display that as Flexbox. In this case, we don't want things to wrap to the next line. So like in the galleries that we've done, you notice that everything kind of wrapped to the next line, so everything aligned in nice little rows. This one, we're going to define each individual row as a new Flexbox container. So we don't want them to wrap. We want each row to stay in a row. But we will justify the content to the center. And then what we're going to do is we're just going to set a background color. And I use light steel blue. It comes up first for me because I've been using it. Just because I don't know, it's a color. When you do this for your own, you can absolutely pick your own that look better. So something I also do almost all the time is a border radius. I kind of use 6 pixels as my standard border radius. And it kind of works out. It just takes that little edge off the corner. Maybe you want that. Don't use it. Totally up to you. So then the other thing that is going to be standard is we want just 1 VH of margin around our items so they're not touching each other, like is very commonly known here. I don't like it. When items touch other items, it just bothers me. So, whoopsies, sorry. Let me go save. And let's see where we're at here. You can see our row, but we haven't really treated the image yet or the paragraph, and we are definitely not in the zone. Let's just finish this one. I have one more thing that I want to do, and that's this box shadow generator. I like using the box shadow just because it makes everything kind of float off the page. You can kind of see it on mine here now that we've got a little bit more done. You can see that little shadow underneath that. You can kind of see how it makes things look more three-dimensional, pops it off the page. So if you Google CSS box shadow, the first thing that should come up is, or one of the first things, I guess, is this CSS Matic box shadow. And this is absolutely what we're going to do. So we're going to use actually all the defaults here. You can mess with it more, play with the sliders, absolutely do whatever you want. I'm going to put an opacity of 0.2 so we can lighten it up. So if you look at this opacity, it makes it a darker shadow or a lighter shadow. I'm kind of a fan of the lighter shadow, kind of more subtlety. So after you use this, the thing I love is that once you do this, you can just, this bottom box shadow line, you can just copy, and all you have to do is pop that inside of your row setup right here, and it does it for you. I'm not going to lie, I don't really always remember what these numbers each do, and I kind of don't care either, because you can go and you can look it up, and you can mess with what each one does. I'm kind of a visual person like that, so you can play with the numbers and check it out, but box shadow generator is the way to go. So inside of a row, moving on, so we have a row item. So this row item is just in a general row, that first row specifically. What we have here is that I decided I wanted all of the text aligned to the center, and I wanted the maximum width of this item to be 50%. So if we only have one item inside of the row, it doesn't look like total garbage where it's like so huge you can't even see it on the page. So now, two new properties that we're going to use. And these are the things that we're going to use instead of using a percentage. And this is flex grow and flex shrink. So what these things do is when you have something that doesn't take up the entirety of the row or takes up too much of the row, you're saying how much it's going to shrink. And this number can be between 0 and whatever. It represents essentially a fraction of the available space, or how much it's going to grow in relationship to other things. So we want these to grow and shrink equally. We just put a 1 in there, and it's going to work just fine. Now, additionally, I put a little bit of box shadow on top of these as well. And then my border radius inside of this, I reused my 6 pixels is kind of my number. Subtle, not ridiculous. Again, all up to you. And then additionally, the last property I use is going to be margin, because again, and that's just 1VH, I believe is what I put, 1VW, just so they don't touch each other. And again, you can kind of see where these numbers go. Now, before we preview this, I'm going to put one more thing on there. And we have inside of our .row item, we have the image. So remember, this is our selector here, row item, and this is the image tag inside of that. We just want to display that as a block, and we want to make that have a width of 100%. And all that's going to do is that's going to make it so it, instead of that image looking like it does right here, where it's just super humongous, when we refresh this, you see that all of a sudden those images, that image now fits inside of our row here. Now, the couple other things that we are going to do, I think that we're on track for that as of now. All right, let's get back to this here. Just trying to make sure, double check that we have everything that we require. So, other things that we have, if you notice mine here, We have a nice heading and a paragraph that we also have to give a little bit of treatment to. I put a darker heading, a darker color in the background, and a white heading, and then a white and black combination down on there. So let's go ahead and give that to our page as well. So again, specifically specifying, sorry, not the best sentence, what we want. Inside of our row item, I have an H3 that I've written, and we're going to just set four of the standards, really. Background color, color margin, and padding. From day one, I told you that we're going to set these on most things, and this is no different. Give it the colors we want. Since it's H3, it has some built-in, some built-in margin, so we're taking that off, and we're just giving it a little bit extra space around it. The only difference is, since we've set a border radius, and I like those rounded corners, we're going to set it a little bit differently here, where we're going to do 6px, 6px, 0, 0. Now, the reason to do it that way is because border radius is a shortcut, so this is the top left and top right border, and that is indeed how we want it to go. So let's just double check, make sure, well, let's do paragraph before we double check. So paragraph, row item paragraph, is going to be kind of similar, where we're going to set background color, padding, and margin to 0. But the border radius is going to be slightly different, because if you think about where this is, you have to do the bottom two. So 0, 0, 6px. So the bottom right and bottom left corner have that radius, so it doesn't overdo what we set before. So let's take a double check of where we're at. We didn't have their colors. Everything was touching the outside. It was definitely not working out as well as it should. Once we refresh it, you should have this, our different color for the heading, our white paragraph. You see the borders are all nice and rounded. And that is, as a matter of fact, the end of the first setup. So going on, we only have a couple more of these to do. We have in our HTML something called row image. So we have done, so our first row here, we have taken care of. Now we need this second row. So the row image is going to be that image. This can be either on the right or the left. In the first one, it's on the left. But as you could see from our setup here, it's definitely not right yet. So let's go ahead and give it a little bit of treatment, and let's make this setup work. So our row image, we're going to use yet one more new thing. It is a class, so row-image. And there's this thing in Flexbox called flex basis. And as opposed to giving it a percentage like we have done before, flex basis says that this item is going to start to be 35% of the available space. Like all things, we're going to give it just a little bit of padding, my 2VH standard. And then in this one, we're going to set one other thing. So we do not want this to get smaller. So when we resize the page, if you don't set this flex shrink, it's going to shrink with the page, and it's no longer going to be 35%. It's going to look super awkward. We don't want it to do that, so we're going to say that we don't. Now that's a start for. So this row image is the box that the image is in. So now we actually have to treat the image tag inside of there. So for the image tag inside of that row image, we need two things, our standard two things that we do for every image: display it as a block and give it a width of 100%. So after you do that, you can kind of click back over, And when you refresh, you see that now our image actually fits where it should be. But we still have a little bit of work to do. We have the title that needs to be nicer. Our paragraph and our title are hitting the outside of the item. It's no good. So what we're going to do is give that a little bit more treatment yet. So the next thing we have to work with is our image row item. So in our image row, in this particular version of the setup, we have an image and an image row item. So the item, you can put whatever you want inside of there. I put an H3 in a paragraph. So this image row item is what's next. Let's go ahead and cheat that. So image row item is the class. My recommendation is whenever you do this, copy the class and then go up into here and just paste it. It's going to make your life easier. So we have a setup where we have an image and then other stuff. So for the flex basis, as opposed to setting it to be 35%, we just want it to be automatically whatever else is left. And that's how you get everything to work out perfectly. There's only two other things that you have in here to worry about. And that is a background color of white for the, that'll only be visible but for the text. And then just a margin of 2VH, so it'll give a little bit of space around it. So now, two things left, only two. Inside of that image row item, we have an H3 that we're using as a header. We're going to set our general properties right here, the same stuff that we always kind of set. Background color, color margin, and padding. Not very different from all the other stuff that we've done. And inside of our paragraph, so our image row item paragraph, all we're going to do is set padding, only so it doesn't touch the outside. So we're going to use our padding of 2VH and call it good. So let's double check, make sure everything is good. And we do, the only thing I wish I'd kind of done is rounded corners in the side, but that's okay. This will work fine as it is. But that is indeed your completed version of this setup. So let's go over a little bit, just quick recap of what we did. We have actually a decent amount of CSS. We have a row, which is going to be the basic Flexbox container, and we gave it those basic properties. Each item inside of that row, for our first row of items, we've given those properties. We've used our flex grow and shrink to make sure that they size evenly. We've displayed our images in both cases as a block. And then we've just done some basic formatting for a paragraph and header so it looks a little bit nicer. And that is the setup. If you have questions, as always, please do let me know. I know that this is kind of a lot of stuff to take in. However, this is a setup that you can take with you and use should you ever need to design professional websites. It's definitely something you can use as a starter. So good luck. Let me know if you have any questions, and we'll see you for the next one.